This video is for the Chea database class, and if you're not in that class, this won't make a whole lot of sense to you. First thing you want to do, if you have not yet installed your copy of LibreOffice, go out and get a copy of LibreOffice. Just Google LibreOffice download and find one and install it. If you already have it installed, open it up and pick Database. What do you want to do? Create a new database and hit Next. Yes, register the database for me. Open it for editing. Finish. And it asks me what I want to name it, so I'm going to call it Chea Database Video. And we leave this file name extension ODB on here. You may not have an ODB showing up there. It depends on the settings on your computer. But if it showed up without one, that's fine, as long as this down here says type is ODF database star.odb. Okay, our database is now created. There's nothing in it. So we're going to make sure Tables is clicked here, and then create table in Design View. First, we're going to create the household table. We'll start off with household ID. And we're going to make that into a integer field, because we want to use it as our primary key, and it has to be an integer field for that. Right click on this little triangle and click primary key, and make sure that little key icon shows up to make that our primary key. We're not going to put all the data items in the database just yet. We want to get our fields, our primary keys, and a little bit of data set up in each table, and then create the relationships, create the forms, make sure our relationships work right, and then we'll type in all the extra fields. So we have household ID, then let's put last name in. And we'll make that a text varchar. Oh, there's one other thing we need to do with household ID, which I forgot. So let's click on that. Make sure that shows up all blue, and then click auto value yes, because it is it is our primary key. We want the database to populate that or put the numbers in for us. We don't want to have to put them in. So I'm just going to click on that again to make sure it says yes, because there's been a few times when I've clicked yes and then it changed it to no. And so it still says yes, so that looks good. I'm now going to hit save. Table name is household. And OK. X out of this. Okay, now we're going to create the person table. So create table in Design View, and we'll start off with the the person ID, and that has to be an integer field. And then the household ID. Oops! Before I leave person ID, I need to auto value it also, and make it the primary key. Okay, so we have primary key, and it changed my auto value to off, so I'm going to turn that back on again. You have to keep an eye on that. Sometimes it switches it on and off, especially when you start messing with the fact that it's a primary key. And then household ID, which will be the foreign key. And I have to make that into an integer field. Then last name. I'll make first name first. And that'll be a text varchar. And last name. Also a text varchar. Okay, I'm going to check and make sure the person ID is still auto-valued. Yes, it is. And household ID is just what it's supposed to be. It's got a no there. And I am going to save that table. And we'll call it person. Okay. X out of that. Now that I have my household and person table, I'm going to create a relationship between them. So I go to Tools, Relationships. Household is already selected, so I'll add that to my relationships, then add person to my relationships, and close that. Drag this over here a little bit so I have a little more room. Now I'm going to left click on Household ID and drag over to Household ID and then release my mouse button. And when I release my mouse button, I now have a one-to-N relationship. That gives me the relationship I need, and I'm going to hit save. Now I have my two tables created and I have my basic relationship structure. The only thing I don't have as far as the tables go is all the fields that we've chosen. So I'm going to X out of this and now create a form and make sure everything's working okay. So I'll click Forms, and I'm going to use the wizard to create the form. And I'll use the household table. And I don't really want the household ID in the form, so I'm not going to put that in there. I'm going to put the last name in the form. And then next allows me to set up a subform. And what that does is it lets me use the table that has a relationship with the main form. So I'm going to add a subform based on an existing relation, and that will be person. And then next. Here's my available fields. I'm going to use the first name and the last name. Then next. Arrange controls. You could pick whatever you like here. I like this one and this one, so I'm going to pick those. Then next. I want it to display all data, and I'm not putting any restrictions on it. These are things you might want to restrict for different reasons depending on what your database is for, but I don't want any. So I'll hit next. And this just has to do with what it looks like. You can mess with this all you want. Me, I don't care, so I'm going to hit next. The name of the form will be household, and after I get done I'm going to work with it. So finish. There's my form. So let me start off by entering some names. So I'll start off with, I'm going to use fake names because this is going on YouTube. I would suggest you use real names because if you do, then you don't have to remove those names after you've done your testing. Last name Smith. And then I'm going to click down here and say Jim. Oops. Jim. And then I can use the tab key to go to the next field, Smith. Then when I hit enter, notice that the last name up here stays there. That's because I'm creating more records in the person table to stay with that household. If the cursor was up here flashing instead of there flashing, then it would have gone to the next last name, the next household field. Sorry, the next household row. First name Steve, last name Smith. Enter. And Sally Smith. Enter. And then there's excuse me, there's someone living in the household who's not named Smith, and we'll make that person Joe Jackson. So Joe Jackson lives in the Smith household, and enter. Now, I'm done with the Smith household. I'm going to make a different household now, and we'll make the Jones household. And there's Fred Jones. Enter. And Deborah Jones. Enter. And we'll stop there. Well, no, I think what we need to do now is select that field on top and then hit enter so that this gets stored in so that Jones gets stored in the household table. View and data sources. Then expand tables, pick household. Here we see the Smith household with household ID 0 and the Jones household with household ID 1. Then click Person, and you can see all the people we put in the Smith household. The 3 Smiths and the Joe Jackson all have household ID of 0. And then the 2 people we put, or did we put 3 people? Just 2 people in the Jones household with household ID of 1, and each one has a unique person ID. And that's all you need to do for today's homework. Now what you can do is you can just X out of this and X out of LibreOffice. If it tells you you haven't saved it, hit save, and you're done.